You're listening to Morning Edition on this Tuesday here on WCBU. I'm Rich Drager. Illinois has the fourth highest number of data centers in the United States, and demand for the centers is only growing as companies want large facilities to store servers and keep them cool. State leaders in Illinois once promoted the industry as a means of economic development. But as Illinois Public Media's Abisola Dahunzi reports, some lawmakers are now raising concerns that new data center proposals could drive up utility costs and threaten the state's natural resources.
State Representative Carol Ammons of Urbana says there's a staggering demand for data centers in Illinois. Speaking at a press conference earlier this year, she says the utility companies ComEd and Ameren have received proposals for new data centers that would require a combined 44 gigawatts of electricity each year. For comparison, she says Orlando, Florida uses 1 gigawatt of electricity a year.
That means that the data centers waiting to connect to our grid plan need much more power than 44 Orlandos put together. You and I shouldn't have to pay.
The representative introduced a bill called the Power Act. It would require developers to pay for their own renewable energy to power the centers as well as grid upgrades instead of passing those costs onto local residents. But advocates for the data center industry say they already account for their impact on the energy grid, and new costs are not passed on to ratepayers.
I mean, the industry is 100% committed to ensuring its full cost of service and is already doing that.
Brad Teets with the Data Center Coalition says these development projects help bring in revenue, which can lower a state's financial burden.
The cost of today's increasing electricity prices is in large part due to the need to modernize our aging grid. And when data centers enter a locality, they are taking on a greater share of the fixed costs that are leading to these increased prices.
Demand is growing for these data centers since they support artificial intelligence. They transmit data that are useful for large language models like ChatGPT or Google Gemini. But Aija Joshkun, a professor at Boston University who studies energy needs for data centers, says that also means they increase the demand on the electric grid.
AI data centers are essentially becoming some of the largest single electricity customers in the region. So their demand is continuous and concentrated as opposed to a city's demand being spread out.
These facilities also generate lots of heat and require massive amounts of water to keep them cool. Xiaolei Ren is an associate professor studying the community impacts of big tech at the University of California, Riverside. He warns the centers can put stress on a region's water supply, especially as demand spikes in the summer.
So these millions of gallons of water capacity requests from the local water infrastructure is really straining the system. And in many cases, the communities don't have that much water available to support the demand.
Teets says the data center industry used 39 billion gallons of water across the last year, but he says that figure is dwarfed by the 500 billion gallons consumed by the food and beverage industry and the even larger amount utilized for agriculture.
The data center industry, yes, has been a large water user, but by no means the largest, and we're increasingly getting more and more efficient by the day.
Still, some communities with more limited water supplies are worried data centers could affect their reservoirs. Republican State Senator Chapin Rose says the projects pose a unique threat to the Mahomet Aquifer, an underground layer of rock that stores and transmits usable water in east central Illinois.
So it is a finite resource. It is our sole source to aquifer, meaning there's no other place to go for a million Illinoisans. You can't just flip a switch and turn on a spigot from somewhere else. So we got to be really careful with it.
Rose has introduced a separate bill that would ban data center companies from using the aquifer and require them to seek alternate water sources. Lawmakers are currently debating their proposals to regulate data centers and hoping to pass a bill before the spring session ends at the end of May. I'm Abisola Dahunzi.
And I'm Rich Drager for WCBU Reports. You're listening to Morning Edition on WCBU, Peoria Public Radio, part of the NPR network.